Cereal time, cereal time, cereal time, whoa.
Come on, twinkle, twinkle, baby, twinkle, twinkle.
That twinkle in his eye.
Twinkles?
What's up, cereal heads? Today we're going to talk about Twinkles. So this is a very old cereal that General Mills just brought back and reintroduced to the market this year in 2024. For some reason I thought I covered this cereal already in a previous video, but it turns out that I have not. So before we open and talk about this new box of Twinkles that just hit shelves, let's travel back to when the original Twinkles cereal came out. The year was 1960, and I guess the best way to introduce this cereal is to show you a commercial for back then. So here's a clip.
Hey kids, look what's new. A brand new cereal just for you. Twinkles, the new star-shaped cereal in the Storybook package. See? Inside, delicious, crispy, crinkly stars. And outside, a real storybook. All about Twinkles, the magic elephant. See him fly with his rotor tail. Watch him do tricks with his magic trunk. Meet Twinkle's friends. Fulton the inventor, Sanford the parrot, Wilbur the monkey, and more. Read all about their adventures on every storybook package of Twinkles.
So as you heard, the cereal came in a storybook package, and we'll get to that in a second. But first, let's just talk about the basics. The cereal itself was crunchy, sweetened, star-shaped pieces, a shape we've seen countless times before from the cereal companies over the years. And the mascot was an animated orange elephant named Twinkles. Twinkles had a handful of animal friends, too. There was Sanford the parrot, Fulton the camel, and Wilbur the monkey. These characters, with Twinkles as the lead, were featured in short animated segments in the cartoon Leonardo and His Short Subjects that aired back in 1960. General Mills was a sponsor of this cartoon, and they used their sponsorship to insert Twinkles and his friends into little animated short segments with narration. Here's a clip from one called Twinkles and the Haunted House.
Today our story is about Twinkles and the haunted house. A ghost lives in that old house near the woods, Wilbur the mischievous monkey told Twinkles. Now Wilbur Twinkle said, you know, there's no such thing as a ghost. There's no such thing, chimed in Sanford the boastful parrot.
Now eventually the FCC would ban cartoons that featured advertising mascots. They didn't like companies sneakily trying to sell kids products masked as cartoon shows. In fact, I think they removed the Twinkle segments of these Leonardo cartoons when they re-aired them in syndication years later. But in that first year, they made about 50 of these 90-second Twinkles cartoons. And while I'm sure kids really enjoyed those, there were even more stories of Twinkles and his friends that you could collect on the cereal boxes. This is where we get into the storybook packages you heard them mention in that commercial earlier. So in total, there were 42 different storybook boxes of Twinkles cereal. There were 7 different series with 6 boxes in each series. And there are collectors out there who've collected all 42 boxes, or at least have cataloged all 42 boxes. Collector Jim Rash has all of them cataloged on his website, which I'll share the link in the description down below. Now for me, the only box I have is this 4th one from the 3rd series in 1960. These boxes are really fun. I imagine if I was a kid back in 1960, I would have bugged my parents to collect all of them. Let's take a closer look at this box here. You can see up top here it says Storybook Packages on the box, and this means that it was series 3 or later. The series 1 or 2 box don't have that on it. You can see it has a brief description here. It says a star-shaped cereal, and then it gets right into the first panel of the story. And I say first panel because in a way, these were kind of like comic books on cereal boxes. So here on the front of the box, here we have Twinkles, who's staring at Wilbur there, who's dressed as a moon man or an astronaut. And then you got Sanford the parrot jumping back all scared. You'll also notice this old school General Mills logo here on the bottom of the box. They don't use this version of the logo anymore on boxes. And then you can see the text for the story down here at the bottom. "Hello," said a strange voice. Twinkle stared and stared at the speaker. "Why are you staring at me?" it asked. "Haven't you ever seen a moon man before?" And then the story continues right along to the side of the box here on a vertical panel. You can see that's Wilbur in his moon man outfit, and he says, "Take me to your leader." Then we flip it over to the back of the box and the story continues. You can see the name of this story here at the top. It says Twinkles and the Moon Man, and it says that on the top and the bottom of the box as well, so collectors had easy way to discern which boxes were which. You'll also see up here there's a D. And that D is the 4th letter in the alphabet, meaning the 4th box in this series. There's A, B, C, D, E, and F. All right, let's read through this little Moon Man story here. The Moon Man was only Wilbur playing a monkey trick, but how were Twinkles and his friends to know? They started leading him to the zookeeper. Suddenly, Wilbur started laughing. He laughed so hard he fell and started rolling. He rolled and rolled and rolled and rolled until he struck a rock and bent his moon suit. Now, if you want to continue this story and read the next 2 pages, you have to tear along this little perforated edge here with your finger and then fold it over and you get 2 more pages of the story. Now, I don't really want to tear this open. I haven't seen too many boxes of Twinkles where they're still complete and intact like this. But thankfully, as I said, Jim Rash shared his collection online, so we can head over there and take a look at how this story ends without having to tear this perforated edge. So in this next page, it says, Wilbur tried to get out of his costume. He tugged and pulled and yanked, but it was no use. He couldn't budge it. Help me, he pleaded to Twinkles. I'm Wilbur the monkey. Twinkles said, how can you be Wilbur the monkey when we all know you're a moon man? And Twinkles winked at his friends. Wilbur cried and pleaded, I'm not a moon man. It was just a trick. I'm Wilbur, and I want you to help me get out of this terrible hot stuffy costume. Soon, Twinkles returned with a monkey who looked exactly like Wilbur. This is Wilbur, said Twinkles, so you must be a moon man. Wilbur fainted. Then Twinkles sprayed him with water from his magic trunk, and whoosh, the moon man costume came loose. When Wilbur awoke, he stared at the other monkey. If I'm Wilbur, who are you? I'm your cousin, Wilfred, smiled the other monkey. And Twinkles said, when we found out that Wilfred came to visit you, we decided to teach you a lesson. You did, moaned Wilbur. I'll never play a monkey trick again. So that's a fun story there. And like I said, there are 41 other stories like these. And on those Series 7 boxes, they had names of stories that were supposed to appear on the Series 8 boxes, with titles like Twinkles and the Sleepy Sloth and Twinkles and the Stubborn Mule, but unfortunately General Mills never produced an 8th series of these Twinkles storybook packages. Instead, they changed the box design and eventually got rid of Twinkles the Elephant altogether as the mascot. The cereal went through a few name changes, including Sugar Sparkle Twinkles and Tutti Frutti Twinkles. They added different colors and flavored stars. They even added sprinkles to the stars at one point with a new mascot called the Twinkles Sprinkler, who you can see in a later commercial here.
Hey, a fire chief!
Not me, I'm a twinkle sprinkler. I sprinkle twinkles with sugar and bright party colors. Sugar sprinkle twinkles in bright party colors. Twinkles!
That version predates Sprinkle Spangle cereal by about 30 years, but I gotta imagine that was an early inspiration for that beloved 90s cereal. They also made a board game in 1961 produced by Milton Bradley, where you had to get Twinkles and his friends to the Star Factory. And we'll get back to that in a second. I'm not exactly sure when the cereal was finally discontinued, but I really only consider 1960 and 1961 the true era of Twinkles cereal. That was the era of the storybook packages, and with Twinkles on the front of each box, it's really what made the cereal special. And now, 60 plus years after its first release, General Mills has finally returned this classic cereal and the beloved Twinkles mascot to grocery shelves everywhere. Now, as you can see from the box here, they didn't go with the storybook packaging, which is kind of disappointing, but also understandable in today's market where companies try to spend as little amount of money as possible on new products. But you can see here they have this little retro back to the 1960s logo there on the front of the box, which I'm hoping is maybe a sign they'll do some more retro cereals in the future. You got Twinkles the Elephant here on the front of the box. It says star-shaped cereal, and you can see all the little stars there in the bowl. And then if you look closely, you can see down here at the bottom they have that old school General Mills logo that I showed you on the other Twinkles box. So that's a little fun throwback to some advertising trivia. This box has a game on the back, but on the side here, it explains to you how to play that game. It tells you to cut out the characters, and they have Sanford, Wilbur, and Leopold, but Fulton the Camel is surprisingly absent. And then on the back here, you have the whole game board. The object of the game is to get the characters to the Star Factory, which, if you remember, was the goal of that 1961 Twinkles board game from Milton Bradley. This is kind of just like a stripped down version of that classic game. Again, a nice little throwback to the original iteration of this beloved 1960s mascot and brand. Alright, I've talked enough about this cereal. Let's open up this stuff and take a look. So here's what a bowl of this new Twinkles cereal looks like. You can see it's just star-shaped corn pieces, nothing special here, and these pieces are made solely with corn flour, whereas the original Twinkles was made with oat flour in it, so we know these will be inferior. But let's hit them with some milk and give them a try. Yeah, so it's just sort of a sweetened, crunchy cereal. There's no real strong flavor to it, it's just sweet. The flavor isn't really that special or unique. I don't know how well it compares to the original 1960s version of this cereal. I'd be curious to hear what some of the older cereal heads who ate this cereal back in the day think about this reboot. But at the end of the day, I don't think you're really buying it for the amazing cereal inside. I think you're buying it for the marketing gimmick and the nostalgia of it. Personally, I wish they would have stayed true to the brand and included a storybook packaging on this new box, or at least just a regular story on the back. I think we all would have loved the new Twinkles story all these years later, but they're just trying to clear the lowest bar possible and I guess appeal to boomers' nostalgia and get them to buy this stuff. I don't know. I don't think this stuff's going to be around too long. It's hard to get a new generation excited about a cereal and a brand they know nothing about. But as I said, maybe this is the beginning of General Mills going back into their archives and rebooting and reintroducing some classic cereals that we all loved. There are a handful of cereals from the 80s and 90s that could get a reboot. Ice Cream Cones, Rocky Road, Hidden Treasures. Man, we can dream, right? Alright, well that's gonna do it for Twinkles, and I guess just to preemptively answer any questions, no, Cereal Time is not back. I said before I might pop in every once in a while to make a new video if I had time and something inspired me. So that's what this is. Please don't hold your breath for new videos every Saturday. Unfortunately, that's just not possible with my schedule these days. But you can always still find me on TikTok, unless that app disappears in 2025. Alright, as always, thank you for watching, and until next time, stay crunchy. What do we think happened to Fulton the Camel? Did he die or something?
Cereal